This is Streets and People, conversations about people and projects shaping how we move. Find us at getaroundcaboolture.au. Today we're doing one of our People and Projects episodes. I'm here in the studio with Lucy Saunders, and I met you, Lucy, when you were doing the Healthy Streets presentation at one of the transport networking events. But I also wanted to get you on the show because Will Simons, who was on the previous episode, recommended this as something that people could use. So I wanted to get you on the show so you could describe the app because it's super easy to use. And there's a new guidance out by Austroads. It recommends the Healthy Streets app as well. I'm here on Gubbi Gubbi country in Queensland in Caboolture. And Lucy, whereabouts are you calling from?
I'm in East London in the UK, in Europe.
What made you interested in this area and why is it that this matters to you?
I have always professionally been interested in public health, and that's my professional background. So I spent my whole career looking at what are the things that cause people to get sick and die young that we can do something about, that we could somehow prevent or avoid or reduce the impacts of. And one of the big public health challenges, not just in Australia, but in many countries, is that people find it really difficult to build movement into their everyday lives. And this is a result of us having built our street environments and our transport systems and our jobs and everything in our environment to be effort free. And while that's great in some ways, it means that a lot of the benefits that we need for our bodies and our brains to work well get lost when we don't have a need to move around during the day. Coming from public health, I was looking at what would it take to enable more people to be able to walk, cycle, use public transport, scoot, ride, etc. And once you start looking at this, you can see the reason why people are avoiding traveling on foot and by bike is that it's actually really much harder to do that than it is to get in a car in many places. And if we want to make this a choice that people feel that they can make, we need to put a lot more attention into the little details around our streets, how calm and relaxing they are, how easy it is to cross the street, whether you can chat side by side while you're walking along. All these things are really vitally important and they don't get anywhere near the level of attention that they need. So this is how I moved from the world of public health into working a lot more with people who have control over the design and the management of our street environment.
So, what made you want to design the tool?
There's a few reasons. I've been working in this area of looking at streets and how to make streets better for people for over a decade. And mostly I've worked with professionals, and the professionals who are shaping our streets are often guided by what the politicians tell them to do, and the politicians are making their best guess based on what they think the public want from their streets. But we don't have a huge amount of information. We don't very often ask people how they feel about their street environments and what they think of them. It's not necessarily something that a lot of people feel is an easy thing for them to do, to go and ask this. So I'm just trying to make that easier. The app that you've mentioned is a web-based app, which means you don't go to the app store to download it. What you would do is just go online, open your web browser, and put in surveys.healthystreets.com, and on your phone it will open what looks like an app. And anyone can use this, it's really simple, to rate how their street feels and then share that information with whoever they want. Now, the person they might want to share it with is their mum or their neighbour or their friend or their colleague, but they can also share it with their local council to say, this is what we think of our streets, this is what we think is good, and this is what we think could be better. So it's trying to make it much easier for us to make decisions around streets based on what local people feel they need, rather than just trying to guess that, which is what we've been doing for quite a long time.
When I tried the app, it was on a busy street in Brisbane. I gave all the ratings really harsh numbers, and the transport professionals, they gave it a much higher number than me. Because for me, I was going, this is really noisy, it's hot, it's unpleasant. I wonder how you navigate that. Everybody has this subjective experience depending on maybe their own professional desire to see that we're not actually as bad as we think. and how you navigate that with the community who might go, actually, this is really awful. I hate this place where I am.
Yeah, everyone will have a different opinion if you ask people completely subjectively, how do you feel right now? And often people who have not spent much time thinking about their streets and looking at them through the lens of the questions that we ask in this survey will take a quick glance around and say it looks pretty nice, and they'll give it quite a good score. You tend to get much lower scores from people who have really tuned into thinking about these details about what their street environment is like. People who've been to other places where they feel the streets are better, who are benchmarking their experience against somewhere else and saying, why can't our streets be like that? And then the third group of people who tend to score the streets subjectively lower are people who are the ones who are experiencing the very sharpest end of all the problems. So people who have mobility impairments, people who have no choice but to walk or to ride, people who are traveling in groups or traveling with children. They're the ones for whom streets have not been designed with their needs in mind, and they feel the worst aspects of everything, so they tend to score streets worse. But there is a real challenge across Australia. Generally in Australia, streets look nice, and so people taking their first glance will say, looks pretty good. And that's why we really need more people to start looking a little bit more in detail, because once you look a little bit more in detail, just as you found, you do start to notice this footpath is not even wide enough for us to walk side by side in conversation. This street has no shade trees on one side, so it's absolutely boiling hot in summer. This bus stop has no shelter for when it's pouring with rain. So these details are the things that we want people to get a little bit more tuned into, so that they can start to say, I think we can do better. I think you can do more for us. And I think I want to use my street differently to how it's been designed.
And so, with the results, as Lucy said, it's just through the phone. I guess you could probably use it with a tablet as well. And that might be easier for people who need a larger screen as well. And so, I'm just looking at it and I'm going, so how would I share this with my local politicians and the council? How would I send it to transport teams? And what do I do with the information and how do I do it?
So when you finish your survey, it gives you a little button that you can press, which says share this on social media, and you can choose which social media platform you want to share it on. Or you can copy the link and just put it straight into an email to send to somebody. Most people should be directing their feedback to their local councillors, and you can find out who your local councillors are by going on your local council websites. And they might then put you in charge with the transport team in your local council. But it's really important that our politicians, the people who represent us, hear this information from us as well.
And so, if a politician thinks, actually, this would be great to substantiate, I'm really interested in friendly bicycle and active transport things, what sort of promotional materials or how could that councillor go, all right, this would actually be really useful for me to be able to share with the constituents so that we can actually encourage change?
So if a local council wants to encourage more people to use this tool, it's completely free for anyone. So you can put QR codes up, or you can just send out the link to the website to anyone who you want to encourage to use it. You can put it on your websites, or you could put it in letters out to residents or posters out on the street as well.
Is there a sort of a counsellor friendly version sort of ready to go where it says, we want to hear from you about your street. This is where you go.
They will have within their own council their own rules and guidance on what words they want to use, how they want to present it, what branding they want to put on it. And councils are used to writing out to residents on a regular basis around their streets. So they can easily just add this into the letters that they usually use.
Counsellors are really busy. It's a much tougher job than you can imagine. It's really hard. They get a lot of flack. They spend a lot of time. They are coming in with goodwill, and people think, oh, government. It's like not realizing it's just the same as you and me. It's just that they've happened to put their hand up for it. And so, how have you found counsellors be receptive to the app, to the information?
It's really variable depending on who they are, because as you say, counsellors are just human beings like each and every one of us. So some of them are very much thinking about this already, and they find this a really useful way for them to have the conversation with the officers in the local council about what things can we do differently. This is what the public are telling me. Others, it will feel new and they might not really understand why it's important. What I always encourage people to do if they're not sure that their counsellor really sees why this is important is offer to take them out for a coffee, and while you're there, sitting out on the street with your cup of coffee, open this and fill in the survey with them and get their perspective. This is the quickest and most direct way of helping someone to see the world through this perspective, is to fill in this very quick 5-minute survey with them. And that often really opens their eyes. And you can then talk to them about how their experience of the street is so different to your own, because it almost certainly will be. But there are some things that everyone can, through discussion, agree are the same problems. We can all see that streets are difficult to cross. We can all see that footpaths aren't wide enough, and we can all see there are not enough shade trees. This is consistent feedback I get from streets all across Australia, from all different people from different walks of life. These are just standard things that we're not quite doing enough on. And then there are little local details on every single street, small things that are great, that should be cherished, and other things that could just be so much better with a small change. So it helps you to identify not that the council needs to find a huge amount of money to do something big and bold. It sometimes helps you to see some small adjustments that would just make life easier for most people.
And what sort of small adjustments have you seen work?
I've definitely seen the benefit of planting in grass verges with more sustainable native planting can really change the way that a street feels, and often that's something that is led by residents themselves on the grass verge in front of their home. Sometimes it's adding some cycle stands in key locations so that people can securely lock their bike up on a stand that's out of the way, rather than on the footpath to a lamppost where it could fall down and get in the way of people who are walking. And sometimes it's just fixing, when the pavers get lifted by tree roots, you can go along and do just spot improvements along that route to get that footpath level again. So really modest changes can make the difference between someone's journey being a struggle and being manageable.
So these are small things. So it doesn't recommend you must put in a bike lane here or you must change the street speed or anything like that. Is there anything contentious about what is revealed?
So we've mentioned quite a lot about the feelings aspect of this survey. This app has two elements to it. There's the subjective survey, which we've talked about. Everyone can put down their perspective and they'll be very different. And then there's another tool that you can use afterwards, which takes a little bit longer. Rather than 5 minutes, it will take 15 minutes. And this is a measurement survey, but it's not very sciencey. You don't need to be some kind of engineer to do it. Anyone can fill it in, but it asks you about some of the specific details about what you have in your street. How much of the street has shade cover? How much of the street has lighting over the footpaths? How many cars are going along this street? Asks you some really simple calculations and things that you can easily do, and that will reveal that your street has footpaths that are not actually wide enough for some disabled people to be able to use, or it could identify that you don't have a safe crossing point where people need to cross at the intersection. So this will reveal some specific things that you could take to your local council and say, please, can you do something about this problem that's been highlighted?
And have you found people talk about street speeds? Because actually, in my street, it's very quiet. We don't have a lot of cars. There's a little park quite nearby, and I see the kids on their scooters and they're going up to the park, but the curb radius are very large to allow for the garbage truck, and the street speed is 50 kilometers an hour, and there's a little bit of a blind corner here and there, and I just sit there going, oh gosh, this is a problem. And I wondered whether there was any way to use the app to highlight these problems and safety concerns for the children.
Absolutely. So when you're filling this in, it asks you to choose some multi-choice questions, so you can just click buttons. But if you want to, you can also add in your own notes and photographs of the things that you think are really problematic. And then when you've finished it, it will produce for you a detailed report with all of your photographs and all of your notes in. So if you're feeling really keen, you can do quite a detailed assessment of your street and then easily send that to whoever you think could help address it. And that could be the local school, or it could be a local advocacy group, or it could be the local council. It just depends. In that, you can highlight with a photograph and your own notes, this is a problem that I've found. I think this could be really improved if you could tighten this junction up and give more priority for people crossing. It's a key route to school, and there's lots of kids using this every day, and I think that's a really useful thing for people to do if they're willing.
It's actually really good for me because I probably wasn't aware that it could be useful. And I actually spend a lot of time walking around my neighborhood, and I like to walk around the neighborhood to get things fixed and repaired. And I've been using another app to get things that are broken, but I've probably been using the other app too much. And the infrastructure team who have to do the repairs are not friends of mine anymore, which is a pity because I've reported issues that I think would have been better done through the Healthy Streets app. I use this other app, which is one that council uses for its reporting broken footpaths and broken infrastructure like swings and rubbish and needles and all those sorts of things. But this is much more at the design level. How is this street design actually working for me? And I'm going, actually, this would have been a much better tool for me to do that. And I write a lot of letters to council. So when they get a letter from me, they go, ho hum, I don't care. It's Wendy writing about her advocacy one more time, where she's complaining one more time about how bad the infrastructure is. So, how do you get the community engaged to see that they can participate?
I would say, in my experience, you will need to put a lot more work in than you anticipate to get someone to take 5 minutes out of their day to fill in a survey on a street. So I talk to lots of councils and they say, oh, we're hoping everyone's going to fill this in. And it doesn't happen by hoping. You probably need to go with them out onto the street and open it for them on their phone and stand with them and really be there to not hold their hand, but stand alongside them while they do it. And that's because people are busy people. They have a million other demands on their time, and they won't know before they fill it in how easy it is or how much value they might personally get out of it. So if you want people in your community to use this tool, you will need to put some work in at least at first to get the first people to use it and then to tell their friends, hey, this is worth doing. The best times for engaging people is when there is some kind of local concerns about an issue. So people are talking amongst themselves about a concern of fast traffic or unsafe intersections, or if you know that change is coming. So if the council have said, we're planning on doing a project in this location, that's a time when people are more likely to feel that they're open to being engaged and also that what they say is going to be listened to. So I would pick your moment, stand alongside them, and then make sure that you bring together everyone's feedback. Get them all to send you their reports because it's just a link. It will take them 2 seconds to send it to you on a messaging. Get them to send you their surveys, and then you put them together and you send them in and say, this is what all these different people have to say. So this is not just me saying this. These are all members of your community, people who may or may not vote for you at the next election. This is what they are saying. And you can even summarize the key points. Make it easy for the council to digest it by saying, these are the top things that everyone raised as concerns, but also everyone's human and wants some positive feedback. So it's really good when you're talking to council, whether it's to officers or to elected members, to also highlight the things that are positive on those streets. This is partly to give people a bit of a boost for the hard work they're doing, but also to guard against them taking out something good when they're trying to fix a problem, which can happen. So if you've got some lovely, beautiful native trees, you don't want them to chop them down to widen the footpath because you said the footpath wasn't wide enough. You want them to build more footpath on the other side of the tree. So these things are some tips for if you're trying to get your voices heard more widely.
I was thinking about My friend who's got a couple of small kids, she's got a toddler and also one who's just in kindy. I was thinking about maybe if all the mums got together in their respective streets and collectively in their area, because the thing that's beneficial about a school area and you're getting a group of mums or dads is that does a collective assessment over a larger area, and great for kids because we all want to protect our kids and make it safe and good for the kids. And we know that when they ride to school, it's better for them.
So there's a project that's been running in New South Wales where they've been in 8 different communities. They identified the streets leading towards the school in each of those neighbourhoods, and they have been out auditing the routes to the school that the kids would be taking to identify things they can improve, and then grouping those problems into the small things that need fixing that you mentioned earlier on, which can be done straight away, clearing up a big pile of gravel that's been left on a footpath, for example. And then the things that are small changes, like plant a couple of trees, put in a bike stand. And then bigger things, we need to upgrade this intersection, make it tighter, make the crossings more prominent, those kinds of things. So they can then put in a scheduled program and they direct each problem to the right bit of the council to fix it. Yeah, so that's something that's been going on over the last few months, and we're going to be publishing a report on the healthystreets.com website within the next 2 months, which shows all those results. So you can see the data and what happened with that. This is a really good idea to focus around schools because you've got a group of people who are feeling the difficulties and the challenges. You've got small children who we all want to protect and give a good start in life. And you've got a lot of local streets in a neighborhood, so if you can improve them, you won't just benefit the school community, but you'll benefit everyone who lives in that neighborhood. The teachers and the other staff in the school are key to engage in this. So if you are a parent and you are taking your kid to your local school or kindergarten, talk to the teachers and the staff at the school about the challenges they're experiencing and bring them on board as well. So it's not just the voice of parents and kids, but it's also the wider school community who are asking for these changes too.
And did you find any difference between the engagement by primary school children and secondary school student, or?
So there's a bit of a difference between primary and secondary in that for primary school, often the kids are within a short walking distance of their school and they're going with their parents. This healthy street survey that we're talking about today, you need to be age 13 to fill it in yourself for protecting the data and the identity of young children. So if you are with young children, you'll be filling the survey in on behalf of them as an adult. But once you're at secondary school, you can fill in the survey yourself and you'll have a different kind of a journey. You might be riding a bike a longer distance or you might be using public transport. So we tend to find there's higher engagement with primary schools because it's parents who are leading that. But there's some really lovely initiatives where students in secondary schools and high schools are looking at mobilizing the student community to raise road safety concerns. So there's some really lovely examples from across the country where that is being done as well.
Another person that I always ask what could they do is somebody, he has some cognitive impairments because he's in quite a lot of pain and he has a number of difficult health issues. He's actually our number one supporter. He's a lovely, beautiful man. He was in hospital recently over the Christmas holidays. And so for people in that sort of situation who may feel a bit disenfranchised, don't feel connected with the area, what could they do?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we have is that many people, not just members of the public, but also professionals, if you talk about disabled people, their idea of a disabled person is somebody who is a wheelchair user who needs door to door access by car. But disabled people or people with disabilities is a very broad spectrum of people who have a range of cognitive and sensory and mobility impairments. Many of them will have two or three. So they might have a sensory impairment and a cognitive impairment. And then we've got all the people who are living with shorter term illness and injury who are also experiencing many similar barriers on streets. I don't think the responsibility should be with people who are disabled to have to explain this to everyone else, but they can help to raise awareness that disability is not just wheelchair dependence, it's a whole range of issues. And having their voice heard through using this survey is really important. So when you fill in the survey, you can create your own free account, and it asks you what types of disability you have. And so that means that when we have the data, it's all anonymized, but we can show that very important story, which is that people who have disabilities are finding streets so much less accessible. There's an assumption that people with disabilities are using a car for all their journeys, so they don't care whether the street is nice to walk or cycle. But it's absolutely not true. People with disabilities have less access to cars. And it's even more important that we provide places that are peaceful, with space where they can rest, providing enough shade, wide enough footpaths, more time at crossings. These things are even more important for them, and trying to have their voice be heard by more people is a really important mission for me personally as well.
Certainly, since I've been doing Get Around Caboolture, I've become more aware of the needs of people with disabilities and the range and the complexity of it. And I think one of the challenges in this space is the narrowness with which people are categorized. Disability has wheelchair, family, that's two parents, two kids, sort of thing. And families today are all sorts of different constellations and different ages and all sorts. So I think there is a need to almost put people as individuals and then see how they travel as a group of individuals in a way. So if somebody is a junior member of staff at council, say in the transport team, what could they do to encourage uptake within the transport team and staff and also the community?
Yeah, you've made a really important point, which is that a lot of time people are put off doing something because they see how big a job it could be rather than just seeing what is the first step that I can take tomorrow. Often when I talk to people who work in council, they see everything they could do to deliver healthy streets and it seems overwhelming. And I say the things that you can do that will be most impactful don't involve any money, any resources, any political will. You just need to take your team, next time you have a team meeting, out onto the street for 2 minutes and get them to fill in the survey. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to make a presentation for them. You don't need to write a briefing document. Just take them out onto the street and fill this in and have a chat about what they found. Because this is the quickest way of helping your colleagues to see the street from someone else's perspective, which is really the key to delivering good street environments. So that is most certainly the first step that I encourage everyone to do. Start with your team members, then start going to other teams, and then if you have the opportunity, then take your senior managers and your elected members out onto the street as well. The other thing I also really encourage council officers to do is to identify who their local community groups are and find out what they're doing and what they're interested in and try and build a bit more of a collaborative working relationship with them. There's often a misconception that if you work in council, you're not allowed to talk to people outside of council. I think that is not correct, and that's not been my experience. I think it's really important to deliver good places for the community for there to be quite a lot of open dialogue and learning between the two.
I think there can be some barriers, and so there are challenges there that you can't talk to so and so at council. I don't know what that's about. We used to be able to talk to people, but it seems very gate kept these days.
I think it makes sense that if you're trying to manage consistent, clear communication out of the council, that you want to have some standard processes, but that doesn't mean you have to stop everyone from talking to everyone. You just need to agree how you're going to do it. And I think there could be a lot more than there is in many places, not everywhere, but in many places.
We're coming up to the last bit, which is there anything that you wish that I had asked or anything else you would like to add before we close out?
The only thing that we can all do to make the world different and to make our own lives easier and make other people's lives easier is that when we're out on streets, really concentrate and be mindful of the environment that we're in. Really live in that experience. If you're driving a car, try and drive it to the very best of your ability and give it your full attention. and try and be the best driver that you can be, showing kindness and caring to the other people in the street. If you're walking, have a look around and see who the other people are in the street and maybe acknowledge them. And if you're riding a bike, go a little bit slower and just take in the environment if you can, and notice the birds in the trees and take in the atmosphere, because really living in that experience of being on streets is enormously valuable to our well-being. Even on streets that don't feel very healthy, you can usually find at least one thing that is positive, and that's a nice way to focus on the positives, not only noticing all the things you'd like to be better.
I've got friends because I ride my bike around and we just bumped into each other all the time. And I see a lot of people and it makes me feel part of the community. And it's that sort of stuff. Absolutely. So that's great. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. And I've really learned a lot. And I've thought, I know exactly who would love this app. And I'm going to recommend it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.
That's Streets and People. Thanks for listening. You can find more at getaroundcaboolture.au.